Hi there, Tarot lovers. Look at our card of the day. Today is the reversed Two of Swords. So, the twos are all about duality, and the swords have a very strong dualistic nature. Our minds are just so stuck in this right and wrong, good and bad dynamic, and this is something that's so prevalent on an intellectual and rational nature that when we are, in the duality card, and we're in our minds at the same time, we can get really stuck. And this picture represents, the subconscious with the moon and the blindfold and the feminine figure. It's all about what's going on below the surface of ourselves. And this figure is standing or is sitting on a bench there with the seas and rocks in the background and a moon, and her arms crossed over her heart with the two swords. And this two-sword story is very much about decision making and choices, and the fact that our mind is running back and forth trying to make decisions and choices and is not really the best tool to do so. Our mind is really quite often the worst tool to be making the decisions, because it's our heart that really knows what the score is and knows what's best for us at one time. The mind is just going to go round and round in circles and try and figure stuff out. When this card is upside down, I see and I read this in two ways. There you go, another duality. So one of the ways that I read this reversal is where there is a denial of how blind our mind and intellect is making us. We are so fixed in the idea that no, we'll find out the answer. We've just got to weigh and put everything on one scale and everything on the other scale, and we've got to rationalize and go back and forth until we find the answer. We will find the answer, And I don't know if you've ever tried this, and on a mental level, yes, you go around and go, until you get to a moment where the mind just stops and goes, I've had enough. And it's in that moment that you find the answer, when you step outside of the mind. And the denial of how stubborn we can be mentally, and how the intellect is always going to, be weighing stories up about good and bad, right and wrong, and is never really going to be able to find what is the right decision, because the intellect isn't really in touch with our feelings, and so it's not really in touch with our body, and let alone our hearts. And so there is a denial here. There is a rejection of how blind our rational mind is making us. And sometimes we just need to own up and say, oh yeah, we're being a little blind, we're being a little bit stubborn here, and we need to step outside of our mind. And in that moment, then we open up our hearts and we start blocking this connection to what would primarily be, the easiest and the quickest tool for making all decisions in our lives. So there's that denial factor. When that denial factor gets a bit too strong, we end up sort of getting in arguments. We end up being confused and sitting in a lot of self-doubt and worrying, and we're just, we're never going to make choices and decisions because we're just too afraid of the consequences. There's also this dualistic nature of other people's ideas versus our own core ideas. And when we get stuck in the fact that, other people's ideas are really important because, we lose our connection to what is our deeper truth and who we really are and what's most important to us. So this denial can be a big issue, and sometimes it's important just to say, hey, let's drop the mind and go a little bit deeper in this whole story. So there's like an ancestral pattern here. Okay, so on a belief system story, when we're young, we need to believe the ideas and the programs. We need to believe the programs of our parents. We need to, because they are the ones that look after us, and they're going to accept us. They're going to love us more if we adopt their same patterns and their same beliefs. And so we do, and it's a protection story. even when it's going against our hearts, we do it because these are the people that we need most attention from. And in order to get it, we'll sometimes block our hearts off, and we might block our hearts off for all of our lives, and even defend the beliefs that our ancestors have passed down to us from generation to generation, without understanding that inside there is our own heart, and we think we're protecting ourselves, and we think we are looking after ourselves, because at one time that's what it was. It looked like we were looking after ourselves by buying into the ideas of other people, and then we lost, and we're always going to have this doubting uncertainty of duality, and we're always going to be giving more importance to other people's ideas. So that's another dynamic of this upside down card and the duality story: other people's thoughts versus our own. The other way I see this card is that there's a time, it's a great time for resolution. It's a great time. We've been sitting in duality for long enough, and it's time to open our arms. It's time to feel our hearts, feel our bodies. It's time to let go. It's time to understand that we are ready now to stop giving so much importance to our heads. It's time to drop one sword, hold just on to one. It's the only one we've ever needed. We're old enough to be accepted by others for who we are, instead of needing to copy other people and be like them. And it's time to find a resolution to realize that there was only ever one choice. In all the decisions we make in our life, there's only one choice. It's only our head that thinks there's more than one. Our heart knows the choice, and it always has known the right choice. It's our head that is stuck in the idea, no, there really is a choice. But of course, because look, there's path 1, there's path 2, and there's path 3. And there are maybe many paths, but there's only one way to walk those paths. And that is really the choice in our life. And that's the one that we need to be making. And our heart can tell us that. And maybe it's time for that realization to kick in. And I see this card as being upside down, as really being a time when the mind can give way and accept guidance from that part of our consciousness which is much more adept to giving us guidance. I hope this has been a fun message for you today, and I wish you all a fantastic Easter Sunday, because that's what it is today. And sending a lot of positive healing energy to you all. Lots of love.